Jiho walked slowly through the massive doors of the Galactic Council building. His black suit looked simple compared to the colorful robes and strange armor worn by the alien beings around him. Behind him, Captain Subin followed in her Blue Earth military uniform. Her hand stayed close to her weapon, but she tried to look calm. The council chamber was huge. It could hold thousands of beings from different worlds. The ceiling was so high that Jiho could barely see the top. Strange lights floated in the air, and the wall showed pictures of distant stars and planets. Everything was meant to make visitors feel small and unimportant. Jiho had studied for years to become Earth's first ambassador to the stars. He spoke 12 different alien languages and knew the customs of 40 different species. He had hoped this day would mark the beginning of friendship between Earth and the galaxy. Instead, he heard laughter. The laughter came from everywhere. Some aliens made clicking sounds with their teeth. Others made electronic buzzing noises. A few species just made loud whooping sounds. All of them were laughing at the two humans who stood in the center of the great chamber. Chancellor Thexmar sat on a throne made of crystal that glowed with purple light. He was tall and thin with gray skin and 4 arms. His voice sounded like metal scraping against stone when he spoke. "So the little primitives from the dirty blue world want to join us?" Thexmar said. His voice carried across the chamber without any effort. "How amusing. Tell us, little human, what could your species possibly offer to civilized beings?" Jiho had prepared for this question. He stood straight and spoke clearly. "Honorable Chancellor, humanity offers friendship, trade, and knowledge. We have learned much about medicine, engineering, and science. We believe that by working together, all species can benefit." This caused even more laughter. Admiral Keothak of the Hegemony battle fleet stood up from his seat. He was massive, covered in thick scales with arms as big as tree trunks. When he laughed, it sounded like thunder. "Knowledge?" Keothak roared. "Your species has been in space for what, 200 years? My people were building starships when your ancestors were still living in caves. What could you possibly teach us?" Captain Subin stepped forward, but Jiho held up his hand to stop her. He had been warned that many species in the galaxy settled arguments with violence. Earth wanted to show that humans were different. General Zexith activated a holographic display in the center of the chamber. The display showed pictures of Earth's space fleet. There were about 300 ships in total. Most were small patrol vessels. The largest was the UES Harmony, which was 800 meters long. "Look at their mighty fleet," Zexith said with a voice full of mockery. "Our scout ships are bigger than their largest warship. The Hegemony alone has over 2 million battleships. Some of our dreadnoughts are 15 kilometers long." The aliens in the chamber laughed even harder. Some pointed at the hologram and made jokes in languages Jiho didn't understand. Others simply shook their heads as if they couldn't believe what they were seeing. Jiho felt his face grow hot with embarrassment, but he kept his voice steady. "Size is not everything, honored beings. Sometimes the greatest strength comes from wisdom and cooperation, not from having the biggest weapons." This comment made Chancellor Thexmar lean forward on his throne. His 4 eyes focused on Jiho with what might have been interest or threat. "Wisdom?" Thexmar asked. "Your species still fights wars among yourselves. Your planet is divided into hundreds of different governments. You poison your own air and water. You call this wisdom?" Jiho had to admit the Chancellor was right about some things. Earth wasn't perfect. Humans did still have conflicts. They were still learning how to take care of their planet properly, but they were trying to do better. "We are not perfect," Jiho said, "but we are learning. We came here because we believe that by joining the galactic community, we can learn from others and share what we have learned ourselves." Admiral Keothak stood up again. This time he walked down from his seat to stand directly in front of Jiho. The alien was so tall that Jiho had to look up to see his face. The Admiral's breath smelled like sulfur and metal. "You want to know what we think of your offer, little human?" Keothak said quietly. "We think you should go back to your little blue world and play with your toy spaceships. Come back in a few thousand years when you've grown up." Captain Subin's hand moved toward her weapon again. This time Jiho didn't stop her from stepping forward. "Ambassador," Subin said quietly, "perhaps we should tell them about—" "No," Jiho said firmly. "We came here in peace. We offered friendship. That is enough." Subin looked frustrated, but she obeyed orders. She was a good soldier and knew when to follow commands, even when she disagreed with them. Chancellor Thexmar waved one of his 4 hands dismissively. "This meeting is over. Humans, return to your system. Do not come back until you have something real to offer. The galaxy has no time for children playing at being adults. Jiho bowed politely to the Chancellor, then to the other members of the Council. His voice was calm when he spoke, but there was something in his tone that made a few of the aliens stop laughing. We came offering friendship, Jiho said. We hoped you would accept what we had to give. I am sorry that you feel we have nothing to offer. But remember this day, honored beings. Remember that when humanity first reached out to the stars, we came in peace. As Jiho and Subin walked toward the exit, the laughter started again behind them. Some aliens made rude comments about human appearance. Others joked about how small and weak humans looked. But as they reached the doors, Jiho turned back one more time. His voice carried clearly across the huge chamber. We offered you friendship first, he said. Please remember that. Then the two humans left the chamber and walked back to their ship. Behind them, the aliens continued to laugh and joke. None of them noticed that Captain Subin was speaking quietly into a communication device hidden in her collar. Far away, at the edge of the solar system, something massive stirred in the darkness between the stars. Something that had been waiting and watching. Something that the Galactic Council had no idea existed. The laughter in the council chamber continued for several more minutes. But if the aliens had been paying attention, they might have noticed that the two humans hadn't seemed afraid or upset by their rejection. They had seemed almost relieved. 3 months passed after the failed meeting at the Galactic Council. On Earth, people went about their normal lives. They worked, studied, and spent time with their families. Most humans didn't know that their planet was about to be attacked by the largest alien fleet in galactic history. But some people knew. In a secret meeting room deep under the city of Seoul, President Dongwu sat at a round table with Earth's most important leaders. The room had no windows and thick metal walls. The only light came from screens showing the positions of ships in space. Defense Minister Hye Jin stood at the front of the room, pointing at a large display screen. Her face was serious as she spoke. The alien fleet has 2,047 ships, she said. Their largest ship is 15 kilometers long. It carries enough weapons to destroy a small moon. Our entire space fleet has only 300 ships, and most of those are patrol boats. Admiral Tae Yang of Earth's Orbital Defense Force shook his head slowly. He was an old man who had spent his whole life preparing Earth's defenses. He had always hoped this day would never come. We can fight, Admiral Tae Yang said. Our ships are fast and our crews are brave. But against those numbers, Igari, he didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone in the room understood what he meant. President Dongwu looked tired. He had been president for 6 years and had worked hard to keep Earth peaceful. He had hoped that diplomatic contact with aliens would lead to friendship and trade. Instead, it had brought war to his planet's doorstep. What about the civilian population? President Dongwu asked. How many people can we evacuate? The transport ships can carry about 50 million people, Hye Jin answered. But we have 8 billion people on Earth. Even if we had months to prepare, we couldn't save everyone. While the leaders of Earth discussed their desperate situation, the alien fleet moved closer to the solar system. Fleet Admiral Morthek stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. The bridge was the size of a football field, with hundreds of alien officers working at control stations. Morthek was proud of his fleet. In his long career, he had conquered 47 star systems for the hegemony. He had destroyed entire civilizations that refused to surrender. The humans would be easy compared to some of the enemies he had faced. Admiral, said his communications officer, we are now close enough to send a message to the human planet. Morthek smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Excellent. Open a channel to their entire planet. Let every human hear what I have to say. Across Earth, every television, radio, and computer screen suddenly showed the same image. Admiral Morthek's reptilian face appeared, his yellow eyes staring directly at the camera. When he spoke, his voice was translated into dozens of human languages. Humans of Earth, Morthek began. I am Fleet Admiral Morthek of the Hegemony 3rd Expansion Fleet. Your government was rude to the Galactic Council. This behavior must be corrected. On Earth, billions of people stopped what they were doing to listen to the aliens' message. Parents held their children closer. Workers left their offices to gather around screens. Everyone understood that their world was about to change forever. You have 2 choices, Morthek continued. Surrender immediately, and we will allow your species to work as laborers in our outer colonies. You will be fed and housed, and your children will be educated in proper galactic customs. Refuse to surrender, and we will demonstrate why the hegemony has successfully conquered 847 star systems. The transmission ended, leaving Earth in stunned silence. Then the panic began. In cities around the world, people tried to flee to the countryside. Some gathered in churches and temples to pray. Others simply sat in their homes holding their families and waiting for the end. But in the secret military bases, Earth's defenders prepared for battle. On Luna Base, hidden on the dark side of the moon, Director Boram checked her equipment one final time. She was responsible for Earth's most classified project, something so secret that even most government leaders didn't know it existed. Boram had worked on the project for 15 years. She had sacrificed everything for it: her marriage, her relationship with her children, her health. But now, as alien ships approached Earth, she knew that all the sacrifice had been worth it. Captain Jinwoo stood on the bridge of the destroyer Incheon, watching his tactical display. Around him, his crew prepared their weapons and checked their equipment. They all knew they were probably going to die, but they were determined to make the aliens pay a heavy price. "All ships, this is Earth Command," came the voice over the radio. "Take defensive positions around Luna Base. Protect the civilian evacuation ships for as long as possible." Jinwoo looked at his navigation officer, a young woman named Min Seo. She was only 25 years old, and this was her first real battle. Her hands shook slightly as she entered coordinates into her console. "Don't worry," Jinwoo told her quietly. "We're going to give them a fight they won't forget." President Dongwoo's voice came over all military channels. He spoke directly to every soldier, sailor, and pilot who was preparing to defend Earth. "My fellow humans," the president said, "we offered the galaxy our friendship, and they chose to answer with violence. We sought peace, and they brought us war. Very well. If they want to see what humanity is capable of when pushed too far, they are about to learn." The alien fleet began to move faster, heading directly toward Earth's moon. Admiral Morthek was pleased to see that the human ships were forming defensive lines. It would make destroying them easier if they didn't try to run away. "Begin long-range bombardment of their lunar facilities," Morthek ordered. "Let's show these primitives what real weapons can do." The first alien missiles streaked across space toward Luna Base, but as they flew through the darkness, something strange happened. Deep in the outer solar system, beyond the orbit of Pluto, ancient sensors detected the incoming attack. Director Boram received the signal she had been waiting for her entire career. Her hands moved across her control panel, entering codes that only 3 people on Earth knew. Far away in the cold darkness beyond human imagination, something vast and terrible began to wake up. "Sleeping giant protocols activated," Boram whispered to herself. "God help us all." In the outer system, where no human ship had ever traveled, adaptive camouflage fields began to power down. What they revealed was impossible, unthinkable, and absolutely terrifying. Earth's most dangerous secret was about to show itself to the galaxy. The aliens thought they knew everything about human military capability. They had studied Earth's ships, counted their weapons, and measured their technology. But they had made one critical mistake. They had only seen what humanity wanted them to see. Admiral Morthek felt completely confident as his massive fleet approached Earth's moon. His sensors showed exactly what he expected to see: a few hundred small human ships trying to form a defensive line. It was almost insulting how easy this conquest would be. "Sir," reported Intelligence Officer Kretar from his station, "we're detecting some unusual energy readings from the outer parts of this system. It might be some kind of human trap." Morthek waved one of his clawed hands dismissively. The idea that primitive humans could threaten his mighty fleet was ridiculous. What could these primitives possibly hide out there in the cold darkness? There's nothing beyond their outermost planet except empty space and ice. Begin the attack. 200 hegemony destroyers moved forward in perfect formation. Each ship was twice the size of the largest human vessel, and their weapons could punch through the armor of any known spaceship. Energy cannons began to charge with deadly light as the alien fleet prepared to crush Earth's defenders. Captain Jinwoo stood on the bridge of the destroyer Incheon, watching the approaching enemy ships on his tactical display. Around him, his crew worked at their stations with quiet determination. Everyone knew what was about to happen, but nobody spoke about it. "All weapons ready, Captain. reported Weapons Officer Sang-ho. "We have target locks on the lead enemy ships." Jinwoo nodded. His ship and the other human vessels were completely outgunned, but they would do their duty. They would protect Earth for as long as possible, even if it cost them their lives. On Luna Base, Director Boram sat in front of her control console in the deepest part of the underground facility. Her fingers moved across a quantum encryption device that few people on Earth even knew existed. The message she was about to send would travel faster than light to the outer edges of the solar system. She had waited 30 years for this moment. 30 years of keeping Earth's greatest secret hidden from the galaxy. Now, as alien ships prepared to attack her world, it was time to reveal what humanity had really been building in the darkness between the stars. Boram's hands trembled slightly as she entered the final authorization codes. These codes were known only to 3 people on Earth: herself, the President, and one other person whose identity was the most classified secret in human history. Sleeping giant protocols authorized, she whispered into her communication device. "Wake up." The message traveled across the solar system at incredible speed, carried by quantum communication technology that was far more advanced than anything the aliens possessed. It reached its destination in the Kuiper Belt, 15 billion kilometers from the sun, where something impossible waited in the cosmic darkness. For 30 years, humanity had been building their real response to potential alien aggression. While the galaxy watched Earth's small fleet of patrol ships and destroyers, the true defenders of humanity had been constructed in absolute secrecy in the outer solar system. Space itself began to ripple as massive adaptive camouflage fields powered down. What they revealed was the largest artificial construct in human history, something so huge that it defied all logic and engineering principles known to galactic civilization. The UES Leviathan slowly became visible against the stars. 47 kilometers in length and 12 kilometers at its widest point. The Leviathan was not just a spaceship. It was a mobile space station, a weapons platform, and a technological marvel that represented everything humanity had learned about science and engineering over the past 3 centuries. Admiral Chang-ho stood on the command bridge of the Leviathan, looking out through reinforced transparent aluminum at the stars beyond. The bridge was the size of a city block, with hundreds of control stations and thousands of crew members working in perfect coordination. Chang-ho had commanded the Leviathan for 10 years, ever since its construction was completed. His crew of 50,000 specialists had trained their entire lives for this moment. They were the best and brightest that humanity had to offer, and they were about to show the galaxy what humans could accomplish when they put their minds to it. "Engineering reports all systems operational," announced Chief Engineer, So Young from her position at the massive engineering console. "All fusion reactors are running at maximum efficiency. Power output is steady at 847 terawatts. Weapons Officer Hyun-woo looked up from his tactical display. "All weapon systems are charged and ready, Admiral. We have 2,147 particle beam arrays online. Nuclear torpedo bays are loaded with 50,000 warheads. The Hellfire antimatter batteries are fully charged and ready to fire." Navigation Officer Yoon-ji checked her instruments and reported, "FTL jump calculations are complete, sir. We can reach Earth orbit in 42 minutes if you give the order." But Admiral Chang-ho was not in a hurry. The Leviathan had been watching the hegemony fleet since it entered the solar system. Every alien ship had been scanned, analyzed, and catalogued. The Leviathan's computers knew the exact specifications of every enemy vessel, including their weapons, shields, and weak points. "No rush," Chang-ho said calmly. "Let them make the first move. Let them think they understand what they're facing." Near Earth, the first shots of the battle were fired. Hegemony destroyers launched missiles at the human defensive line, while Captain Jinwoo's ships responded with their own weapons. Explosions lit up the space around Luna Base as the 2 fleets engaged in deadly combat. Admiral Chang-ho watched the battle through long-range sensors. He saw brave human crews fighting against impossible odds, buying time for their planet with their lives. It was time to even the odds. "Open a communication channel," Chang-ho ordered. "All frequencies maximum power. I want every ship in this system to hear what I have to say." Communications Officer Ye-jin worked at her console, establishing a connection that would reach every vessel within billions of kilometers. When she nodded, Chang-ho began to speak. His voice was calm and measured. but it carried an undertone of absolute authority that made everyone who heard it stop what they were doing and listen. Hegemony Fleet. This is Admiral Chang Ho of the United Earthship Leviathan. You came to our solar system believing you understood humanity's capabilities. You were wrong. You have 60 seconds to begin immediate withdrawal from this system. This is your only warning. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, Admiral Morthek stared at his sensor displays in complete confusion. His instruments were showing an energy signature from the outer system that was impossible to believe. Check those readings again, he ordered his science officer. That can't be right. Science Officer Veltar frantically recalibrated his equipment, but the readings remained the same. Sir, confirmed readings. We have a single massive object at coordinates 247 Mark 85. Length 47.3 kilometers. Mass approximately 2.8 billion tons. Energy output equivalent to a small star. Morthek's confidence began to crack. Nothing in galactic history had ever been built on such a scale. The largest ship in the Hegemony fleet was only 15 kilometers long. This thing was 3 times bigger than anything that should be possible to construct. Impossible, Morthek whispered. No civilization has the technology to build something like that. But as he watched his instruments, the impossible became undeniably real. The Leviathan was moving, accelerating toward Earth at speeds that should have torn apart any normal spacecraft. As it passed Jupiter's orbit, its gravitational field began pulling small asteroids into its wake, creating a glittering debris trail that stretched for thousands of kilometers. The 60 seconds that Admiral Chang Ho had given them were almost up. Admiral Morthek stared at his sensor readings in complete disbelief. The numbers couldn't be real. No ship could be 47 kilometers long. No single vessel could generate the energy output of a small star. Yet his instruments insisted that exactly such a ship was approaching his fleet at incredible speed. Science Officer Veltar, run a complete diagnostic on all sensor systems, Morthek ordered. These readings must be some kind of malfunction. Veltar's claws clicked rapidly across his control panel as he checked and rechecked every instrument. After several minutes, he looked up with terror in his large black eyes. Sir, all sensors are functioning perfectly. The readings are accurate. We are facing a human vessel that is 47.3 kilometers in length with a mass of 2.8 billion tons. Its energy signature indicates fusion power on a scale we have never seen before. The Leviathan continued its approach, and now the aliens could see it with their own eyes through their view screens. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The ship's hull was a dark metallic color that seemed to absorb light. Strange patterns of energy ran along its surface like glowing veins. As it moved through space, reality itself seemed to bend around it. Captain Minho of the Earth destroyer Guangzhou watched the massive ship pass by his position and felt his jaw drop open. He had been told that Earth had secret weapons, but nothing had prepared him for this. Command, are you seeing this? Minho spoke into his radio. That thing it's impossible. How did we build something like that? Admiral Chang Ho's voice echoed across all communication frequencies as the Leviathan passed Mars' orbit. His tone was still calm, but now there was an edge to it that made even the bravest alien warriors feel afraid. Hegemony forces, your 60 seconds have expired. You have shown that you prefer violence to reason. You came to our system to conquer and destroy. Now you will learn why that was a mistake. Admiral Morthek felt his pride and his reputation on the line. He had conquered 47 star systems for the Hegemony. He had never retreated from any battle. He would not start now, no matter how large the enemy ship might be. All ships, Morthek transmitted to his fleet. Concentrate all weapons on that monstrosity. No single vessel can stand against the combined might of 2,000 Hegemony warships. Show these humans the price of threatening us. 800 alien warships turned their weapons toward the approaching Leviathan. The space between Mars and Jupiter lit up like a miniature sun as thousands of energy beams, plasma cannons, and nuclear missiles were fired simultaneously. It was the largest coordinated attack in the history of galactic warfare. The barrage struck the Leviathan's defensive shields in a spectacular display of light and energy that could be seen from Earth with the naked eye. For 30 seconds, the massive human ship disappeared completely inside a ball of destructive energy that was hot enough to melt planets. Every alien in the Hegemony fleet held their breath, waiting for the light to fade so they could see the wreckage of the destroyed human vessel. Nothing could survive such an attack. Nothing ever had. When the energy finally dissipated, the Leviathan emerged completely unharmed. Its shields had not even flickered. The most powerful attack in galactic history had done absolutely no damage whatsoever. Admiral Morthek felt his heart stop beating for a moment. That was impossible. Nothing could survive the combined firepower of 800 warships. The laws of physics themselves said it couldn't happen. On the Leviathan's bridge, Weapons Officer Hyun Woo looked calmly at his tactical display. "Sir, the aliens have fired first. What are your orders?" Admiral Chang Ho considered the situation for exactly 3 seconds. The hegemony fleet had been given a chance to withdraw peacefully. They had chosen violence instead. Now they would face the consequences of that choice. "All weapons," Chang Ho said quietly. "Fire at will." The Leviathan's response was swift and devastating. 2,000 particle beam arrays fired simultaneously, each one targeting a different hegemony vessel. The alien ship's shields, which had been designed to withstand conventional energy weapons, proved completely useless against humanity's advanced particle physics technology. The beams didn't just damage the alien ships. They completely disintegrated them on a molecular level. Matter was converted back into its basic atomic components and scattered across space like cosmic dust. Ship after ship simply ceased to exist, leaving nothing behind but glowing particles. In the first 10 seconds of the Leviathan's attack, 400 hegemony ships were utterly destroyed. The surviving alien crews watched in horror as their fleet was systematically annihilated by weapons they could not understand or defend against. "Sir," Communications Officer Ye-jin reported, "we're receiving surrender requests from 147 alien vessels. Many of their captains are begging for mercy." Admiral Chang Ho felt no satisfaction in the destruction he was witnessing. These aliens had forced this battle upon humanity. They had come to conquer and enslave Earth's population, but he took no pleasure in killing even when it was necessary. "Tell the surrendering ships to move to safe distance and power down all weapons," Chang Ho ordered. "We will accept their surrender." But Admiral Morthek's flagship, the Eternal Dominion, was trying to escape. The massive 15-kilometer dreadnought was turning away from Earth and accelerating toward the edge of the solar system. Chang Ho could not allow the alien admiral to escape and return with reinforcements. "Target the enemy flagship," Chang Ho commanded. "Use the main gun." The Leviathan's primary weapon was something that no other civilization in the galaxy had ever imagined, let alone built. It was a focused antimatter beam that could crack planets open like eggs. The technology required to contain and direct antimatter on such a scale was beyond the understanding of most galactic civilizations. The main gun fired once, a beam of pure annihilation reached across space and struck the Eternal Dominion amidships. The alien dreadnought, which had been the pride of the hegemony fleet, was cut cleanly in half. Both sections of the ship exploded simultaneously, creating a brief new star in the darkness of space. In the sudden silence that followed the destruction of their flagship, the surviving alien ships powered down their weapons and transmitted unconditional surrender messages. The battle was over. Admiral Chang Ho's voice carried across the solar system to every surviving alien vessel. "Any remaining hegemony forces have 10 minutes to leave our system. If you ever return to Earth, you will come in peace or you will not come at all." Captain Jinwoo, still alive on the bridge of his damaged destroyer, looked at his tactical display in amazement. Less than 15 minutes ago, his small fleet had been facing certain destruction. Now the enemy was fleeing in terror. "How?" he whispered to himself. "How did we build something like that?" The answer was simple, although few people knew it. For 30 years, while the galaxy had watched Earth's small fleet of patrol ships, humanity's greatest minds had been working in secret. They had built not just a ship, but a symbol of human determination and ingenuity. The Leviathan was proof that when humans set their minds to something, they could accomplish the impossible. It was also a warning to any species that might threaten Earth in the future. The age of alien dominance over humanity was over before it had truly begun. The galaxy would never again underestimate the people of the small blue world that had seemed so primitive and defenseless. In the outer darkness of space, the Leviathan began its patrol of the solar system's edge, a silent guardian watching for any new threats to Earth and its people. News of the hegemony's devastating defeat spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. The third expansion fleet, which had entered the Sol system with over 2,000 warships, limped back to hegemony space with barely 300 survivors. The military might that had conquered 847 worlds had been shattered by a single human vessel. On the hegemony homeworld of Morthak Prime, Supreme Commander Zexkoth watched the battle recordings for the 20th time. Each viewing made the defeat seem more impossible and more terrifying. His science council had analyzed every second of the footage, but they still couldn't explain how the humans had built such a massive ship without anyone detecting it. How? Zexkoth demanded, slamming his fist on the table hard enough to crack the metal surface. How did these primitives build something that makes our largest ships look like toys? Chief Science Advisor Thekamar presented his report with trembling hands. The implications of what they had discovered were almost too frightening to speak aloud. Supreme Commander, our intelligence was deliberately manipulated for decades. While we monitored their small patrol fleet, the humans were secretly constructing this Leviathan in the outer regions of their system. The energy readings suggest they have mastered controlled fusion on a scale that exceeds our own technology by centuries. The revelation was crushing. The hegemony had built their empire on the belief that they possessed the most advanced technology in the galaxy. Now they discovered that a species they had dismissed as primitives had been hiding capabilities that made the hegemony look backward and primitive. Across the galaxy, other civilizations were rapidly changing their opinions about humanity. The Centauri Collective, a peaceful alliance of trading worlds, immediately dispatched their fastest diplomatic ship to Earth. Ambassador Zental carried formal requests for alliance and mutual defense treaties. The Draconian Empire, which had been planning their own assault on human space, quietly canceled all military operations in that sector of the galaxy. Emperor Sektar issued orders that no Draconian ship was to approach the Sol system without explicit permission from the human government. Even the mysterious Void Walkers, an ancient species that rarely communicated with younger civilizations, sent a message of respect to Earth. This was unprecedented. The Void Walkers had not acknowledged the existence of any new species in over 10,000 years. On Earth, President Dongwu addressed the world from the Global Assembly Building in Geneva. Billions of people watched as their leader explained what had just happened in their solar system. My fellow humans, President Dongwu began, today we proved that our offer of friendship came not from weakness but from choice. We built the Leviathan not to conquer other worlds, but to protect our own. We hoped we would never need to use it, but we always knew this day might come. The president paused to look directly into the camera. His next words would be remembered for generations. We have always believed that strength should protect the weak, not exploit them. Today we showed the galaxy that humanity stands ready to defend not only ourselves, but anyone who chooses peace over conquest. In the depths of space, Admiral Chang Ho received updated orders from Earth Command. The Leviathan would remain on patrol at the edge of the solar system, serving as a guardian for Earth and a warning to any who might threaten it. But the ship's mere existence had already changed the balance of power in the galaxy. Captain Su Jin of the science vessel Discovery transmitted an urgent report to Earth Command. Admiral, we're receiving communication requests from 47 different species. They all want to establish diplomatic relations immediately. The transformation was remarkable. Species that had ignored human diplomatic overtures for decades were now requesting urgent meetings. The Galactic Council, which had so arrogantly dismissed humanity just months before, was sending desperate messages asking for new negotiations. Trade offers flooded Earth's communication networks. The Altarian Merchants Guild offered to share their advanced manufacturing technology in exchange for access to human markets. The Silicon Mines, a collective of artificial intelligences, requested permission to study human computer science. Even former enemies were reconsidering their positions. The hegemony's client species, worlds that had been conquered and forced to serve alien masters, began declaring independence. The Keltaran system threw off hegemony rule and requested Earth's protection. The Zephyrian colonies followed suit within days. President Dongwu found himself in the unusual position of being the most sought-after leader in the galaxy. Every day brought new requests for meetings, alliances, and treaties. Earth, which had been dismissed as irrelevant just months ago, was now the center of galactic politics. Admiral Tae Yang, who had expected to die defending Earth against overwhelming odds, now commanded respect from military leaders across the galaxy. The Centauri Defense Force requested permission to send observers to study human tactics. The Federation Navy asked for joint training exercises, but the most significant change was happening among the smaller, weaker civilizations that had been bullied and exploited by the major powers. For the first time in galactic history, They had proof that it was possible to stand up to the big empires and win. The hegemony's expansion had been permanently halted. 3 of their former client species had already gained independence, and more were following every day. The empire that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia was suddenly looking vulnerable and weak. Director Boram, still working in her secret facility on Luna Base, monitored the galactic situation with satisfaction. The Sleeping Giant project had been her life's work, and it had succeeded beyond her wildest hopes. Not only had Earth been protected, but the entire galaxy was becoming a more peaceful place. She received a message from deep space that made her smile. Admiral Chang Ho reported that construction had begun on 6 more ships of the Leviathan class. Each would be specialized for different defensive purposes, ensuring that Earth would never again be threatened by hostile alien forces. The galaxy had learned a crucial lesson. When humans offered friendship, it was wise to accept. When they offered protection, it was absolute. And when they warned of consequences, those consequences would be swift and devastating. The age of galactic empires built on conquest and fear was ending. Species that had been enemies for thousands of years were beginning to talk about peace. Civilizations that had never communicated before were sharing technology and culture, all because of a single human ship that had emerged from the darkness to protect its home. The Leviathan continued its patrol of the outer solar system, a silent guardian watching over Earth and its people, but its influence reached far beyond the Sol system. Across the galaxy, the balance of power was shifting toward those who chose cooperation over conquest. Humanity had wanted to join the galactic community as friends. Instead, they had become its protectors. The stars themselves seemed brighter, as if the universe approved of the changes that were sweeping across civilized space. For the first time in galactic history, smaller species could hope for freedom without fearing destruction. And in the depths of space, more Leviathan-class ships were taking shape, ensuring that this new age of peace would endure for generations to come.